Welcome to my video on proportions. So a proportion is a statement of equality between two ratios. In a proportion, the cross products are always equal. Here's an example of a proportion. So you may have seen this in a previous year of math. So this is finding a missing value by using a proportion. So remember when we looked to see if two ratios were equivalent, we used their cross products? Well, that's how you find the missing x. So watch what we do here. So we're going to do 5 times the number diagonal to the x. So we're always going to multiply the number diagonal to the x first. So 5 times x is 5x. And we're going to put an equal sign. And then we're going to multiply the other two numbers that are diagonal. So 2 times 25 is 50. And now we have 5x equals 50. So this is simply a one-step equation. So the opposite of multiplication is division. So we're going to divide both sides by 5 to figure out what the x equals. 5 divided by 5 is a 1 in disguise. Bring down your x, and 50 divided by 5 is 10. So x would equal 10. And I know that this is true because I know that 5 times 5 is 25. And since I got x equals 10, 2 times what is 10? 5. So this, I know my answer is without a doubt 10. And you could actually, if you wanted to be sure it was correct, you could also do 2 divided by 5 and 10 divided by 25 to see if they both equal the same decimal. So there's many different ways that you can check to make sure it's correct. Okay, so here's some real world examples. Okay, we have one cake mix calls for 3 eggs. How many eggs will you need for 15 cakes? So we're going to set up a proportion, and when we set up a proportion, we should label what we're putting where. So I am going to write 1 over 3 because I'm doing the ratio of cakes to eggs, so we're going to label the top C and the bottom E for eggs. Like this, and I'm just going to draw an arrow because that's what they represent. And this is going to equal how many eggs for 15 cakes? Well, notice I put cakes on top, so I'm going to put cakes over here. And I don't know how many eggs, so I'm going to put X on the bottom. So notice I have a ratio of cakes to eggs over here, and I have a ratio of cakes to eggs over here. Now, some of you are probably thinking, well, could I have done eggs to cakes and eggs to cakes? And yes, it would still work. So there's many different ways to write the same proportion. Okay, so let's multiply the numbers diagonal to the x first. So 1 times x is 1x, so we can just write the x in disguise. We don't have to write the 1 there. And we're going to do 15 times 3 is 45. And since x is on the bottom, we were looking for the egg, so it's 45 eggs. Okay, and always look back to make sure your answer is reasonable. So if one cake mix is 3 eggs, 15 cakes, 45 eggs, that's a reasonable answer. Okay, number 2, Mandy is paid an hourly rate. 1 week she earned $157.50 by working 25 hours. If she works 40 hours the next week, how much will she earn? Okay, so we're comparing 2 different units here. So we're going to set up a proportion. So we have money and hours. So I'm going to write $157.50 over 25. And notice I put money over hours. So over here, I'm going to write money. So I know the top number represents money and the bottom number represents H or hours. So this is a ratio of money to hours. And then over here, I'm going to make a ratio of money to hours. Well, I want to know how much will they earn. So I don't know how much, and since money goes on top, I'm going to put X on top. And we want to know how much she makes for 40 hours. So we're going to put 40 on the bottom. So watch what I have here. I have money over hours, money over hours. So now we're going to solve our proportions. So we're going to do 25 times X is 25X. And now we're going to do 157.50 times 40, which is 6,300. So I'm going to write equals 6,300. Because remember, our cross products are equally to each other, but we're finding the missing X here. So what's the opposite of multiplication? It's division. So we're going to divide both sides by 25. 25 divided by 25 is a 1 in disguise, so slash those out. And 6,300 divided by 25 is $252. And I put a dollar sign because it asks for how much will she earn. So whenever we're solving a word problem, we want to make sure we label. So is that reasonable? Should it be more than 157.50 for 25 hours? Yeah, it should be a little bit more because we're talking 40 hours compared to 25. So that's a reasonable answer. Now, remember before we said we could say 25 times what gets to 40? This is why we have to solve a proportion sometimes, because we don't know 25 times what is 40, so we don't know what to multiply this by to get the correct answer. Okay, and the last and final problem. A copy machine can produce 76 copies in 2 minutes. At this rate, how long will it take to produce 646 copies? So my 2 units here are copies and minutes. And so I'm just going to put 76 over 2 for my ratio. And I'm going to call the top C for copies. And the bottom I'm going to call M for minutes. Now, remember, I could have put minutes over copies. I just chose to do copies over minutes because that's the way it was written in the problem. Okay. And so now I want to know how long will it take for 646 copies? Since I put copies on top over here, we're going to put it on top over here. And I don't know how long this is going to take, so I'm going to put X on the bottom. So remember, we're going to use cross products of the number diagonal to the X first. So 76 times X is 76X. And we're going to put an equal sign. 646 times 2 is 1,292. And the opposite of multiplication is division. So we're going to divide both sides by 76. 76 divided by 76 is a 1 in disguise. And we get 17 when I divide these two numbers. And since X was on the bottom and I labeled it as M for minutes, we're going to put a label on this as 17 minutes. And once again here, 76 times what took you to 646? You might not be able to figure that out in your head. So that's why solving a proportion is often helpful. That concludes our video on proportions. I hope you have a wonderful day.